welcome to Managing Your Perimeter. I'm Anna Reahl, and together with PJ O'Neill, today we are going to discuss how to secure the world's largest sporting event. And we're going to discuss security strategy, international collaborations, and what it takes to run a safe, world-class sporting event. But before we get into that, PJ, if you just want to say hello, tell us where you are, what you've been doing.
Hey everybody, it's northern burbs of Chicago, and it's a cold, rainy day, like 45 degrees. It's just terrible. But getting to the end of the school year for my freshmen, so very excited about that.
Very
Summer's
nice.
almost here, even though the weather doesn't show it.
Oh, very, very nice.
How about you? How about you? Where are you?
I'm sitting in Florida right now. I do have to head to either DC or Nashville, waiting to find that out today. Hopefully I'll know about that. Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's actually lovely, although very humid here today. So anyway,
Well, your hair doesn't show it. So
yeah, well, because got to spend a little time on it. Anyway, so perfect. Well, today I had the pleasure of meeting this team from Event Concept Consultancy in March at the International Security Conference in Las Vegas. And I had attended, or I actually traveled to Qatar and to New Zealand to see the World Cups, specifically so I could see firsthand how those countries handled the security for those events. So I, of course, was fascinated when I saw that this team was presenting at the ISC and that their presentation was part of the programming. So please welcome to Managing Your Perimeter, Uliana and Konstantin. We're so happy to have you. I'm thrilled to see you guys again. And I'm glad that you could take a little bit of time to sort of, share your depth of knowledge with us. And your presentation was so fascinating to me and definitely spoke to us. PJ, when PJ hears it, he will definitely know what I'm talking about. And this is part of our world. What we do it obviously on the government level for everything that goes on in the US. We have done some things internationally, but specifically we focus on the national special security events here in the United States. So you spoke my language when I heard you all speak. So if you could just take a minute to just sort of introduce yourselves and then tell us about your work.
Sure. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having us. It's a great honor and pleasure to talk to you guys and share our experience. I really think that, first of all, I like the idea of the naming of the podcast, because really perimeter is something that we always focus, and it's great that you welcome it as well. So amazing topic. Thank you very much. So my name is Uliana Barbysheva. I was the head of the stadium security for last two FIFA Football World Cups in Russia 2018 and Qatar 2022. So I have pretty wide experience in major sport events, not only security operations, but as well as venue management for Winter Olympic Games. So, and I'm ready and willing to share some tips and hints and elements of successful formula, how we can do the perimeter and the FIFA Football World Cup in the United States and two other countries, Canada and Mexico. Well, again, the best.
Perfect. Konstantin?
So my name is Konstantin. I was born in Sochi, where we hosted Olympic Games in 2014. And so my career and my amazing journey in the events industry, it started from the Olympic Games in my hometown. And basically starting from 2014 to 2019, my main focus was crowd management, planning and operations. Yeah. And then my experiences shifted in Qatar more to security in combination with elements of crowd management. So I'm happy to be here in this podcast, share my experience with international audience, and especially with upcoming World Cup in US. It would be amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, so happy. That's great. This is perfect. Everything is it's lining up perfectly. I like the way this conversation is going to go. So I guess let's just jump right into this. So when we're discussing event security, when it comes to a massive international event like the World Cup, like what does that mean? What does event security mean to that type of event?
I think that for this kind of events, security is an overarching element that goes through the whole life cycle of every single client group that we have participating in the events. Sometimes it is visible, sometimes it's less visible. I think now one of the trends that we have in security is to have security less visible as possible. Less gates, guns, and barriers, but more of safety, security, and service type of operations. So this is something that every person and every client, every representative of every client group meets with during the whole life cycle of his her event operation, so event experience. So this is why it is very important for the all involved stakeholders to work together jointly to ensure that this life cycle is as smooth as possible, less intrusive as possible. This is where we have this service element raising. And one of the key elements how actually this could be done is the integration of these stakeholders. According to our experience, integration is something that is not very straightforward and not very clear. And sometimes people think that when we say integration of security, it means the integration of the systems from technological perspective. But actually what we mean is the integration of stakeholders, integrated approach, integrated planning approach, integrated operational approach, and ensuring that all the stakeholders involved in this operation know exactly what they do, when they do it, how they do it, and the best way for them to define the best way for them to integrate. Sometimes it's really, not sometimes, actually always, it's a very challenging thing because people tend to, and stakeholder organizations tend to, I don't know, the different approach, maybe not to be responsible for something and try to avoid certain level of responsibility. This is from one point of view. From another point of view, it's more than, okay, if we are responsible for something, we're responsible for our own piece of operations, and it is very complicated to put everyone at one table to let them talk, to let them discuss, and to let them actually find those gaps and overlaps that could be found if they start to talk in their operations, if they start to discuss their operations and their responsibilities.
Right. No, I do know that there's a lot of crossover, and I think PJ and I will absolutely attest to that when we work with local law enforcement and then our client, as well as our vendors that are involved with us, that everybody has a piece of this and all of it has to work together. I mean, it is that puzzle that has to go together in order for the perimeter to be secure, right? So yes, there are a lot of times that people will say, well, that's not mine. I don't really have anything to do with that. But in reality, everybody has a piece of it, and we all have to make sure that it works. Would you agree with that, PJ?
Yeah, well, I mean, it impacts everybody,
Yep.
right? Whether it's the load in and there's fence in the way, whether it's the guest experience, right? What's the last thing we all remember from any event we go to? It's not how great it was, although that's a big part of it. As stakeholders, to use your phrase, we want them to have that good experience. But you're leaving a dinner party or a restaurant or an event. What's the last thing you remember? Is how you got out of there, right? And hopefully it's not in a panic, and hopefully it's not waiting an hour for your car at the valet either, right? It's the smooth operations. Everybody's got to handshake on that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add here like a piece of joke? So one of my, let's say, friends, it's like a saying, we have. So one of our friends attended the FIFA Football World Cup match in Russia, and he knows that we work in security, and he was like, okay, so I came to the stadium, I put my ticket here, put my fan ID there, I just occupied my seat, bought some beer, everything was fine, smooth. Okay, what kind of security? What guys you have been doing for so many years there? why is so complicated? And that's the main thing, that the good operations, good planning means that it has you don't actually see the security, so everything is super smooth, super, I don't know, convenient to you, and don't even realize the amount of work, the amount of efforts, and the amount of planning that has been done to ensure that this path, life cycle, walkthrough of certain person is as smooth as possible.
No, 100%.
Can I jump in here as well? So in
Yeah.
order to achieve it, I yesterday had a very good conversation with my ex-colleague here in Riyadh. So I asked her how can I tell the people about the integration, but not integration of the people, or not integration with systems, integration of the people, to put everyone on one table. She told me, tell how many meetings did you attend starting from 2019 till 2022? And you know what I did? I was yesterday sitting late in the evening, and it took me like around 2 hours. So to calculate the approximate number of a meeting starting from 2019, and the number is around 2,137 meetings in order to achieve this, like, the level of amazing service for security. And this is what Uliana also mentioned, like the seamless security and visible security.
People don't realize how much time we put into this. They don't understand that it's our job is to make it seamless. Our job is to make it invisible. Our job is to make it so that it functions the way it's supposed to. And anything that happens behind the scenes is for us to manage and to put together. In your presentation, you all both talked about the 4S approach. Can we just talk about that a little bit, which was the safety, security, service, and the stakeholders? Within this conversation, can we just discuss like what that means in practice? Like, what is that?
Yes, sure. So basically, this concept has been presented at the Saint-Denis Convention that was of the Council of Europe. If I'm not mistaken, 2016. It was rectified by several countries, but not by all over the world. But we like this one because it really, this was the first attempt to highlight that we need not only focus on football hooliganism, but we need to think how we actually can make the life cycle of this client group and in general of spectators smooth. So this is why I think it is based, to be honest, I'm not sure, but it's a European thing. Maybe it is based on the Green Guide, on the UK legislation, mostly with the Green Guide, Purple Guide thing, because they talk about a lot about safety elements. So security, talk about security elements, like protection of the stadium building itself, or maybe client groups, external threats, misbehavior, so this kind of stuff, public order. Safety is more about being protected from all aspects that cause harm or any accidental issues. So these were two main pillars where we have the football matches operations were built on. So after that convention, they actually added two main elements. One was the service aspect, when we need to think not only how to make their life, I don't know, difficult, how to prohibit stuff, how to make it more, I don't know, serious, but as well think of how we can actually mitigate it and how we can add these service elements. So think of I don't know, good signage, good customer services, good informing of spectators of the regulations that they need to follow. So I think this is, for us, it's the basics actually of, if we talk about venue security operations. When we say venue security operations, actually we mean safety, security, and integration aspect. And in the Saint-Denis Convention, they speak a lot about integration, but we thought that it's very important actually to the level of integration, because when we talk about regular matches, it's it's of course it's complicated and it's challenging, but in major sport events, you need to integrate many stakeholders. So this is why we thought that adding this element integration as the part of the main formula, we thought it's very important to do it from the scratch. So yeah, and when we do our planning for security operations, we take into consideration these elements. So, and we put these elements, we think about them at every step of planning of the operations. Let's see, for when we talk about perimeter operations, for example, you need, as a security element, you build the fence. The fence has to be solid with, I don't know, concrete blocks and detection, CCTV. This is a security element. Safety element, it has to have the proper crowd management element. So you need to think of ingress and egress operations through this perimeter. And service element here is that if you prohibit something during the search and screening, something that is restricted, so think of the smooth operations, think of the restricted item storages as a service element. If you think of different client groups that you have passed through this security perimeter, they have their own needs and their expectations and their requirements. So what is important for spectators may be less important for media, or for players and athletes. So these three elements have to be taken into account at every single small step of planning and operations. Kost, do you want to add something on that?
Yes, and I believe this is Uliana. She told about the wider picture from the security perspective, but there is also element of crowd management. It's like a separate universe in universe. It also requires an integration of different stakeholders. And what we identified, especially after the World Cup in Qatar, the four elements that requires integration is stakeholders, personnel involved in crowd management and security operations. It's infrastructure and it's technologies, because right now there is a lot of things going on with technologies, with artificial intelligence, but sometimes people don't understand how to use these systems. I will tell you a funny story. I will not tell the event itself, but I was in venue operations center and we saw the massive queues in front of a PSA, and I was standing right in front of my colleague, and they told me, "Oh, there are massive queues in front of a PSA. We need to do something." There was a house where they start panicking. I thought, no, everything would be sold out. Everything would be okay in 5 minutes. Just give them 5 minutes. They will go inside the venue. Yes, it happened. But what I was standing and thought, okay, it would be good to have some sort of system that will calculate how many people in this area and how long it will take them to get there. And there was another guy, and he told me, but we have it. And I thought, why no one knew about it? And he told me no one invited me for meetings. And I was like, why? So this is about the integration aspect as well, the integration of stakeholders, personnel, and the technologies as well. So this is a very good example. And I always remember this story when we start communicating, especially with the service and technology providers, like, guys, did you speak to spectator services? Did you speak to venue management? Have you ever spoke to venue commander?
So how, when you're integrating all of those things, what challenges do you face when you're going to different countries with different customs? So, Qatar is going to be different from the US, and Russia, and everyone's kind of got their own, what's the best word? Thoughts on how things, or opinions on the way things need to run. How do you mesh those?
Very good question. Well, it's complicated. So yes, the legislation and the specifics and the cultural aspects in different countries are different, but we understand how does the success look like. So when you know this big picture, how actually the success looks like. And you can put all these elements in, let's say, it's all about actually preparing the documents. So when we say planning, it's not only about meetings. So every meeting actually is has its aim to prepare a document that everyone agrees, and then we follow this documentation. So knowing the differences in legislation and cultural aspects, we anyway understand that we need to write a security concept. It could be called anyhow, this type of document, but it's some kind of a strategy or the concept of operations for the event. We need to write the matrix of responsibilities that actually provides the clarity of who does what in respect of the security and all related to security operations during the planning and during the operations itself. So we take into account, so we know the path, we know the target, and we start to understand, we start to revise the legislation. Okay, so in this country, according to the legislation, this type of things are done by, let's say, police or by other security stakeholder, or I don't know, by Ministry of Defense or by any other ministries, immigration, or it is usually done according to the legislation by the event organizer, or by not by event organizer, but the owner of the building. So plus, of course, budget plays a big role. So when we talk about major sport events, there is certain budget that is allocated to different stakeholders accordingly. So taking into consideration all those things, we pre-populate, let's say, let's discuss the matrix. It's a very clear and very, I think, representative example. So we pre-populate how do we think who shall do what according to the legislation and whatever specifics. And then the biggest issue, the biggest challenge, not the issue, actually the challenge and the most complicated thing is actually to put everyone on one table and go through this and agree. Do you agree that you do this? Yes, yes, no, no. And when it's yes, of course, it's easy and simple. But in case of negative feedback, this is the most complicated challenge. And in this case, it is extremely important that a country has the ultimate decision maker and the ultimate responsible, accountable stakeholder for the certain topic. And this stakeholder has power to decide who does what in case of any disputes. So, for example, in Russia and I think in Qatar, there was a government guarantee regarding the FIFA Football World Cup that the state government is responsible for the security operations of the event. This is why, in this case of certain discrepancies that we might have, the government has the power to assign certain responsibility. So, and as far as I understand, especially having 3 different stakeholders now for the next FIFA Football World Cup, this is as well a challenge. How to, and as far as I understand, it's not only, so in Russia, it was one approach because we had 11 cities and one federal government, and the main decisions are taken by these federal government stakeholders, and they were then cascaded to the cities. In Qatar, it's basically one government together with the city operations. So it's not that, of course, it's complicated, but it's a different type of challenge. But now, for the next FIFA Football World Cup, it's totally different because 3 countries, and if I understand correct, the specifics of the United States, the big responsibility, and there is a big difference even between the states' governments, and the approach of whatever doing things is different. So yeah, it's challenging. Good luck.
She's like, that's it. It's all yours.
Well, that creates it's fascinating. In that the levels are going to escalate or waterfall the issues potentially. What happens when you get someone, and have you run into this, say a government official, like this is normally who handles issue X, right? when you guys have a plan and they come in and say, I know better than you? No, we're not doing that. Has that happened to you? Or
This episode of Managing Your Perimeter is brought to you by First Fence, the experts in keeping what matters most protected. Whether it's a temporary fence for your next big event or a permanent solution for your business, First Fence delivers with speed, precision, and peace of mind. Trusted by pros in construction, events, and beyond, they've got safety down to a science. Need a fence? Get it done right the first time at firstfence.com.
You know, I was traveling nomad for a very long time. I think the first time I really worked for a long time for one organization is Qatar. So, but before I was traveling like in different countries outside Russia, and in Russia as well, different projects. I do believe after these years, you know, in my mind, something like there is a model, like there is a 20% of something that definitely will work for everyone, like methodology, the documents. But 80% is a sort of myth. When you arrive to another country, you communicate with the people who like recruited you, like how it works. You just basically sit down, understand the entire picture of what's going on around, and you adapt this 80%. Okay, this document will not work for this country. These operations, no, they will not work because of this. So it takes time. It takes time. And yes, you mentioned something what I had previously. I think it was 2019 in Minsk. We had some discussions, and basically when we developed the methodology, we thought, no, we will not accept it. I thought, why? And after that, we started the communication, like what will work for them. And I thought, okay, I will deliver it for you. We sit down. It took a lot of time. We spent months to deliver the right methodology for them. So by the end, it worked. So, but it takes time. And I think maybe it seems like a basic thing, but it's communication. It seems like maybe it's simple, but you know, the people are different. And when you start this communication, like face to face, sitting in front of each other on one table, so it starts working.
It is about staying in touch, and it is about knowing that everybody is on the same page. I mean, it gets very difficult when somebody starts to buck the system a little bit, you know, and doesn't want to follow the protocol and doesn't want to follow the plan that you have taken months to put together, and you know, and years and things to put together. You know, it's definitely, I mean, communication is key. I mean, we know that, we understand that in all the different levels, but, and it's really down to the finest detail. It isn't just those that of us that are planning it that need to understand the plan. When it gets down to the actual person that's standing at that gate that has to make a decision at that moment about something that is, you know, maybe going in a different direction than what was planned, that they need to understand what the big plan is and what everyone has put together so that they can execute it well. I think that it's definitely very important that happens. But can you all just talk about maybe some of the biggest lessons and things that you've learned from managing, you know, these high stakes environments? Like what are some of the lessons that you've, you know, had to come away with, that you thought you had it all planned, you know, and then something came up, as it always does. And you know, what you took away from that, or how you sort of mitigated that and moved to that. So either one of you.
Okay, let me start. Let me think. Well, I think that the key lessons that we have gained from working so many years in major sport events, it's actually like every event. I think it's a kind of consequence of what we have discussed right now. Every event anyway is unique. Every team is unique, every situation is unique, and even now having the technology elements evolving that much anyway, we need to adapt. We cannot stick to one approach. It's actually a very good example comparing our experience in Russia and comparing experience in Qatar. It's just impossible to copy paste the approach, the planning, and everything that we had there with Qatar. And we've learned as well a lot how to adapt, how to be flexible, how to learn, and how to having experience, having the reality that we have in another, let's say, country or another event, another team, to adapt and to take something best from our experience, adapt it to a new reality, be able to learn, be able to test the new plan, let's say, and then let's take this as a lesson and then take it to the next one. And don't expect as well that everyone will copy paste the operations, that everyone will copy paste, I don't know, the approach and everything. Even it's always the process of learning and development, and having the operations and planning goes better. So I think this is one of the lessons. Second, this is the whole, our topic is the integration of stakeholders, whatever it is. So anyway, you have to prepare the matrix, whatever this document is called. It's the clear understanding who does what. So there is no way, I mean, maybe there is a way, but I just cannot imagine it, that such document is not made. But the content of this document might be different, depending on the event, depending on the stakeholders, I don't know, situation and something. But in general, this is something that is very important for organizing committees to develop, to understand who does what. And one more thing is regarding learning and regarding the adaptability in case to something when something goes wrong during the operations. So as much effort you put in planning, as much effort you put in planning A, B, C, D, E scenario, even these scenarios you don't need. And even if during the operations you have that scenario happening, but you raise in your team, in stakeholders, certain level of, I would call it maybe resilience, that actually maybe our scenarios that we planned and thought of don't work, but you already kind of having all these trainings, all these tabletops, exercises, meetings, and planning documents, you understand, okay, how to adapt to certain situation, even if this particular situation was not planned.
Can you share one of those, maybe, like one of those times that, the best lessons are always learned the hard way? So when your planning failed to take into account, or something that went sideways, or something happened, how do you guys handle that? Can you think of any specific instance that you're like, oh God, we didn't think of that, when it was just completely out of the blue?
I'm sure we have such examples, but I just cannot take them. Let me take a couple of minutes. Maybe I will remember something.
We can come back to that. That's sure, for sure. Yeah.
Just to add to Uliana's points, maybe my biggest lesson learned, in addition to what was Uliana mentioned, is knowledge. I call it knowledge is the power. So meaning like knowledge is the power is we need to share with our experiences and to gain the experiences from other people. And this is why we start going to different conferences, having conversations with different people from around the world, and giving our examples. But at the same time, we see, oh, this is how it will work in this country. It will not work what we plan to propose, something like this. And another thing related to this knowledge is the power is to invest in younger generation, where experience like we had to train the people to share with all the knowledge we have, at least to find the people who would be interested in it as well, because the modern generation they live in completely different reality, and for them the security industry seems to be not very interesting, but this is the challenge. You finding these people, maybe it's like 1 from 10 people, and you put in his mind all the knowledge you have, and he will think maybe wider, like oh, I will use this knowledge to invest my money in cool application, and we can like of like make the process easier. You know, with younger generation, they can give you more like life hacks how to make the life easier in security industry as well.
I think I have a funny example. So no, not funny. So we like it was in Russia. We like put a lot of effort to develop the very comprehensive and clear list of prohibited items for the stadiums, and prohibited and restricted items. And according to this list, the animals were strictly prohibited to be brought inside the venues. But one more thing as well was funny. But the only type of animals that we did allow was the dogs for special assistance dogs.
Right.
Service animals.
Yeah. And this was clearly stated that this type of dogs are allowed in case a person requires it. But we didn't know that there are emotional support dogs, emotional support animals. And the person really has the prescription that this, I don't remember, it was a dog or it was a cat, that this is an emotional support. So we solved this, but it was very weird, very unusual during the operations. And we didn't think about that in advance, and it took this chain of communication to, at the end of the day, allow this. It took some time, so it was really something unexpected.
Well, wait till you do something in America, and they have like a more emotional support service goats, and you know, whatever else you can think of, you know, and they're not all, but many of them are bogus and fake.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that is it. So that basically kind of transitions us into sort of the human aspect of this, right? We can talk about, and I know that you mentioned, when there's fence and there's, all the concrete and the tents and everything and all of the actual elements to get the people in. But when you get down to the level of the fans and the human element of this, when you're dealing with the different fan cultures. I think in your presentation, you have three sets of fan, if I'm correct. And I don't want to misspeak, so I'm going to let you say what those three are, but it really did, and I think it's, how do you differentiate from those three types? And I know there's ultra and there's a fan and everything, but you all did it so well when I saw you. So if you would kind of touch on that and how you, how you differentiate between those and how the different cultures and things like that. So
so actually I think that one of the vast majority of the fans are let's say so-called active fans, that they follow their countries, they provide their support to them, they chant nice songs. There is a big element of just families over there. So this client group is, I think, the one of the one that we take care of as well. So active families, active fans. We have ultras. So I think those that you were interested in. So ultras are basically, they are more related to club football, to the league football, not for the football, not for the national teams. However, there is a big element as well, but not that crucial as for league football. So these fans, they are like organized support groups with pretty strict hierarchy. Those are the ones that bring like banners, flags, not country flags, but they do something special, like bring large flags and banners to support their teams. Sometimes it's the support of the club of the player of the national team, for example, or the city or the firm that these funds represent. So the organizers have certain ways and channels to communicate with them in order to provide them the possibility to provide the more wide support, more visible support to their teams. So so as well have tools to ensure that they have the opportunity to do whatever like interesting they want in the stadium, like organizing performances and so forth. And I think the most I don't know, notorious or famous football fans, when we hear the words football fans, those are the hooligans. Basically, as well, they are well organized companies, let's say, well organized groups, and they arrange like rivalries. They're interested more in that rather than to support their teams. It happens often in the stadiums, around the stadiums, and as well often it happens actually very far from the stadiums, somewhere in the forests or I don't know, the countryside. So they plan these fights in advance and organize it, and they they could show like some extreme violence elements and so forth. And I think organizers of major sport events, major football events, soccer events, they are interested and put their efforts to actually minimize or prohibit to these hooligans, to the representatives of the firms to be able to participate in the FIFA Football World Cup or any other football event. Yeah, they have some tools to communicate with countries that these funds come from, and to ensure that somehow we don't have this violent element in FIFA Football World Cup.
Got it. Right. I'm sure that the intel, but much like when we, hear about things, when we're given some intel about certain protesters or things, demonstrations that are getting ready to happen. And, our job is to, if we know they're coming, then to, help our stakeholders and local law enforcement and things, find ways to either, move them in different directions, allow them their freedom of speech as we have in the United States. But to hopefully that it doesn't, escalate so that, they have to bring in more reinforcements for that. But yes, I did. I just remembered that you had the 3 categories, and and I was like, oh, I know where I fit. Just being a fan so much. But in order to maintain the order, how do you, without disrupting their experience, and I guess mostly on the first 2, right, the active fans and the ultras and things like that, how do you plan for those kinds of things? I think, and it is little things like, making sure that someone can bring in their emotional support animal, right? I mean, that's what they planned, but, how do you find that, you have to look at the overall umbrella of an experience for a fan, whatever level they are, and hopefully, like they said, the first 2, how do you think that you guys work together on that and plan for that?
Well, I think in general, this is the service element from our 3S formula, to ensure that their life cycle and their walkthrough is safe, secure, convenient. So we need to ensure that the way they get into the country is smooth. The way that they purchase tickets is smooth. Then the accommodation, the roads, the transportation, metro, I don't know, shuttles, that all this is fine. Some of the fans, I don't know, for example, Netherlands, they love to organize parades. So and usually those active fans, as I said, there is a channel to communicate with them. With the organizers have these channels through the active support team leaders. So we organize the workshops for them, describing what is allowed, what is not allowed, and if they want to support their teams and bring something that is beyond, let's say, the general list of prohibited items, still there is a possibility to apply to bring something interesting. And we explain them through the workshops how actually they can do it, what is the application process, when they need to provide it, to provide this application applications, submit their applications. So we think of the way they actually enter to the stadium during the match day. How do they feel in the stadium to ensure that it's not overcrowded? Let's say that the whole experience is nice, so they don't get, I don't know, extra wrong emotions rather than lose. And of course, there is a lot of safety and security operations around that. So we are ready to respond in case anything happens. But again, taking into consideration latest issues that we've observed with the funds. For example, I don't know, Euro final and all those other, even the final of Copa America as well. It was an issue with the fund 2024 last year.
Yes.
I think that again we come to the integration of stakeholders. We need to know the client. We don't need to underestimate our clients. And one of the interesting thing now I want to pay attention on is there is a regular operation of a certain stadium. So usually the stadiums, they have their clubs, they have their funds, families. I don't know. They have this. I don't remember how to call it. Ticket for the season. So it's the same people who go to the stadiums every match to support their team. They know the routes, they know parkings, they know, I don't know, all the infrastructure of the stadiums. So they kind of get used to a certain way of getting in and out of the stadium. But these type of events, it's different because these people are new. They don't know. They come from different countries, from different cities. They don't know the regular operation. And city operations and stadium operations teams, they need to work together and ensure the integration to make this path as smooth as possible and be ready to deal with unticketed people, be ready to respond in case we have a lot of people without tickets. So what is our plan? It's too late to respond to it, to react to it when these people are already near your gates. So this kind of planning as well needs to be taken as well into account. Of course, do you want to add something here?
Yes, you know why there is also some kind of shift to more service oriented approach as well, because there is research that after COVID lockdown, the fans, the football fans and the hooligans, they became more aggressive, and it take less time for them to get crazy. So before it was, for example, the waiting time in the queue like 20 minutes, and people they start feeling uncomfortable. Now there is research that it takes like 7 minutes, and they start getting more aggressive. And this is a very good example where it was in Iraq Gulf Cup, and it was the first time they had even a football match. I think after 30 years, and it was madness. The crowd, it wasn't aggressive. They were so enthusiastic to have a football match in their country that they start breaking the security perimeter. Even, there was deployed the military people and the tanks were the security perimeter. They just ignore it. And military people, they cannot do nothing. It was like a wave. People, they breached the security perimeter. They started running around the stadium. They started having fun. But what happened outside the stadium and the city streets, I don't know. You need to find the videos, or I will share the link with the videos. It's like the massive street. I think it was 2 or 3 kilometers just to people standing, cheering, having fun. There were a lot of people injured, but the density was super high. Like on the concert, it was like 5, 6 people per square meter, but they were not suffering. They were just having this experience of a football match, but it looked amazing at the same time and horrible from safety and security perspective, from crowd management perspective. And this is why now it's shifting to service-oriented approach as well, because you need to feel all these people more comfortable on the stadium, on the FIFA Fan Fest, and in the city itself, because all the things, if they will happen in the city. Like, for example, during the Russian World Cup, we had like Nikolskaya Street near the Kremlin. Like, it was self-organized, like kind of FIFA fun fest. Like people were gathering there, having fun, drinking. Same in Qatar. We have like a Souk Vakif. It's like the most attractive place in Qatar, and people after the football match, after the stadium, after the FIFA Fun Fest, after they had fun in the clubs, like, or in the bars, they were walking around the street, and it was like, I don't know, I remember the videos, like, or I also been there, like, for one time it was like 5 people per square meters. They were walking very slowly, but they were having fun. But at the same time, it's very dangerous. Some people drunk, some people they supporting different teams, like, and they potentially might be fights. I didn't see any, but from our side, from security-wise perspective, it's very dangerous.
It's very, I'm listening to all of this, and I'm, here we are. We're coming up on. We just had, Copa last year. We're coming up on Club World Cup, and then we're going to go into World Cup in these stadiums. And I know that, of course, in our minds, first and foremost, is what we saw in Miami, for the Copa. And in many conversations, everybody's like, we can't have that happen again. We can't have that happen again. So, based on your experience, so are you involved at all in any of the North America planning? Is your company involved in it at all?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, but
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Good. And when you come here, then you can call us and we will all do this together. But having said that, what do you see as maybe the top 3 security challenges that faces? Because it's in 3 places, right? It's the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So not only, and not even touching on the cultural differences or the different, that they're in, 3 different basically countries, but what do you think are the top 3 security challenges that they're going to have for this?
Well, here, to be honest, I think, I will speak maybe as an expert and as a spectator, for example.
Yep.
As an expert, I think issue would be the integration of stakeholders and some kind of joint operations centers, joint control and command centers for security. So the stakeholders involved in security operations at each stadium, they work together. The stadium team and the last mile team and the city authorities, for example. So integration would be a challenge, big one. Then maybe weather, especially in the south of United States, and because it's, as far as I understand, it's at least the beginning of the hurricane season, so it might bring some challenges, and this could influence it could influence actually everything, transportation, logistics, and so forth. And to be honest, I think the third thing that I would like to add is basically the same as me being a spectator. It's transportation. I think that it could be an issue, because a lot of could be an issue, right? Taking into consideration Russian experience, Qatar experience, a lot of transportation actually was based on public transport. So the vast majority of spectators, they used public transport or transport shuttles organized by their event organizers and related stakeholders. I think that this might be a challenge for the United States, because I try to use public transport and it's complicated. So it's always a taxi or walking, but the distances are very high. For example, let's take Miami. So you can walk to the stadium from Miami or Miami Beach City or Miami downtown. You need to drive pretty long, as far as I remember. So the transportation might be an issue. I don't know, to think of required number of parking lots for maybe locals. But even if it's going to be Uber, there might be a big challenge even with Uber operations. So it has to be planned. So they have to think of certain organizing the way these Ubers will take their spectators, their passengers, and come, then leave. So it cannot be I just exit the stadium, take an Uber, and I ride. No, because it will be the traffic collapse even more. So it has to be some kind of organized, done in the organized manner. I don't know. So my guess that traffic will be at least one of the issues. So the organizers might, I think that they need to think of this to minimize this, and or even make it perfectly unchallenging.
Yep.
In addition to the transport and in addition to the points Uliana mentioned, I think this can be the crowd management, the crowd movement of people in the airport, because the people, some of the fans, they will travel to the city, host city, only just for one day. They will not book any sort of accommodation. They will gather somehow in the airport waiting for their airplane and then travel to another host city. The second thing related to the crowd management is FIFA FanFest crowd management, because it's usually non-ticketed event, and the people will gather there. Even if you plan capacity for 40,000 people, they may come like 60 or 70,000 people, because if you will not allow them inside, they will gather outside the FIFA FanFest, and it will create more challenges. Crowd management in the city areas, like something what I mentioned before, like we had Nikolskaya Street or Souk Vakif in Qatar. So you need to start thinking like which areas in your host city potentially may attract these fans, where we will gather after the football match, after watching the game on the FIFA Fan Fest, after we will drink in the bar or in the nightclub. And challenges related to crowd management on the last mile, the area outside on the stadium, but like the movement of people from the transport hub to the stadium security perimeter. So if something will happen, it may happen usually outside the stadium.
I find that interesting because when I was traveling in, when I did, Qatar and New Zealand, when I immediately came back to the US, I said, I don't know how this is going to work, because it was so easy. In Qatar, it was so easy. We stayed out at the hotel closest to the US match. But we knew to get on public transportation to go to any other match. It was so easy. I didn't have to catch another plane. I didn't have to worry about any of that. And I definitely said, if I want to go see another match in another city, I mean, it's a plane ride. None of these stadiums that they have everything in are, I mean, yes, they're in the United States, but they're not that easy to get to by car. It will take some effort and some real planning by a fan to be able to get there. So, and even in New Zealand, I was able to go to 3 different stadiums, and, it was very, very easy to get to. So yes, I do see that as one of the biggest challenges here, that it's going to take that. And, as you were saying, that the cities have to plan for the people that don't want to travel to the other places. Where are all these fans going to go until it gets to, maybe, the semifinals and the quarterfinals, all of those things, that they will then migrate to those places. But when they're watching the initial matches, they want to be able to go and be with their friends and, and just watch all the different matches at one time. And so all of these cities have to plan for that. I mean, 14, 16 different stadiums at this point in the US, it's like, okay, here we go. Like, this is going to be, it's going to be a challenge. And, I think the US is doing its best to ramp up to that at all things. Because when we have one large event, like the Super Bowl is in one city, one city, they have a fan fest in one area and everything, when we're talking about, putting this out in 14 different stadiums, it's a lot of different places. So,
and I one thing I found fascinating is the travel within the United States. Uliana, you touched on it, is getting into the country. Yeah. With where we are right now, with Customs and Border Patrol, that's a difficult process at the moment, if I'm putting it delicately, right? That I think is, the massive numbers that are going to come in.
Yeah. No, 100% agreed. So there is so much that we could definitely talk about. I think I need to just thank you very much for your time. And if there was a space that we can send our listeners to learn more about your company and what you do, is there someplace they can go to learn that? Can you share that with us?
Yes, we have our official webpage. We can share with a link, and also there is a LinkedIn page as well. So, and our personal contacts as well, Uliana's and my personal as well.
Amazing. No, I thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to see you all again. I really appreciate your time and your effort. And, again, when I heard you speaking, I was like, this is it. These are my people. They get it,
Anna called me as soon as she was done. She's like, I am so getting these guys on the podcast. I don't care what it takes. We're going to get them on.
Yeah. I was just really, really happy to see all of it. And, just because of everything that's coming to the US, it's very exciting. So I sincerely appreciate you sharing your expertise with us and our listeners and everything. And, and for our listeners, please just take a minute. This was a very, very good podcast. This is a really good one. We hope that everyone will just take a minute to listen to it. And, don't forget to download Managing Your Perimeter on your favorite podcast streaming platform, or you can always go to our website, which is www.arcusgrp.com. And then we will also share our guest platform on our any of our teasers and anything that we have coming out. But, until then, thank you so much. We really appreciate your effort. And for all of our listeners, please stay safe out there. And it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.